Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm coming to you today from beautiful Austin, Texas. I'm traveling today on business, so I figured what a better time to do these last two videos to get this YouTube channel started, but today. I've tried to tape this video so many times. It is not easy to talk about yourself and your family online. You kind of get sidetracked some. This video is going to be about Jim. I just want to kind of take you through his, where he is, where he is coming from, that type of stuff. Kind of give you a little bit of background on him. So Jim he worked for the same company for about 30 years. He worked two jobs the first probably 10 years of our marriage. He took care of all of our vehicles, including filling my car up with gas every time it was low. He took care of anything that went on outside, all the repairs that would happen, that would be needed for the house. He loved to ride dirt bikes. He loved to be with the kids. He loved coaching them, watching them playing sports, pretty much doing anything that the kids had going on. He loved just being with them and spending time with them. He liked to fish. He liked to hunt. He loved to entertain. He loved having people at our house. He would laugh and cut up with people. He's a jokester. He could come up with comebacks on a dime. I'm not good with that. I never have been. My kids have learned well from him, especially the boys. He was really mellow and easygoing. All the kids' friends loved him. He was just a good country guy. That's just that to put it in a nutshell. That was him. About I don't know. I guess about 8 years ago, his personality kind of shifted. I mean, I know we all get older and we kind of get a little crotchety, but his personality was changing a lot, and it was changing pretty fast. I say 8 years. It might not have been quite 8 years. I mean, looking back, it seems like it was about 8 years ago. He started getting crotchety. He would get very frustrated with people very quickly, and he would snap at people very quickly. He kind of became like a recluse. Not really. I mean, he would go to work and he would do that stuff, but when he was home, and he was in our bedroom, and he didn't socialize with us very much, and he never went to any of the grandkids' sporting events. He didn't go places with me. I pretty much went by myself. He lost interest in doing too much outside. I mean, he still would mow for give or take, and no landscaping. He wouldn't do any landscaping. He still took care of the pool. Quit taking care of the cars. It's pretty much you do your car, I'll do my car. Our marriage was changing drastically, and each year it would change just a little bit more and a little bit more. I couldn't really figure out why. The only thing that I noticed was his drinking. He was getting to where he was drinking quite a bit, and I didn't know if all the changes were coming because of his drinking, or really if he was just unhappy. And then about 4 years ago or so, I started noticing more changes. And those changes came in repeated conversations. They came in not being able to have productive conversations with people. And they came at not being able to handle our finances. Though all of these changes took time for me to figure out. It's not like it just a light switch just went off. It was little at a time. realizing that one thing led to another thing, led to another thing. Um, he Jim had always done our finances, and he was very good with them. There was no need for me to do them. And then just things started happening. About 3 years ago, we split our bills, maybe even longer. We split our bills. I did my bills and he did his. And then about 2 years ago, maybe not quite that long, Jim had like an episode. We thought it was maybe a stroke. Turns out that it was more of what they called an anxiety attack. It was everything that was going on was really just too much for him at that point in time, because by this time he had been diagnosed with dementia. So it was just too much for his brain to process and to get a hold of. And they explained that all the stressors would continue to cause these types of events. So I decided to take over the finances. Big struggle there. Had to learn a lot. It was hard for him to let go. He did. I think now he's probably happy that I took over them because he doesn't have to deal with them anymore. Big changes in him today are first, in February, I was on a business trip. I was on a business trip to Bentonville, Arkansas, and I had been gone 3 days. And Jim is in the habit of calling me constantly. He would call me just to check in, make sure everything was okay, and make sure I was all right, the trip was going good, that type of stuff. And I noticed on Friday on our way home he hadn't called. I hadn't really talked to him at all that day, and it was a little odd. I tried to call him on my way home. He didn't answer. And then I dropped my counterpart off, and then on my way from his house to our house, I called again. He still didn't answer. And then when I got home, I lifted up the garage, and he was standing there at the garage door, and I knew immediately something was wrong. All I had to do was look at his face. I could tell something wasn't right. I pulled in the garage. In case I didn't tell you, it was about February, or it was in February. And when I pulled in, I could tell that he was crying. And he met me at the door when I opened my car door, and he told me that he had lost his job. And he was visibly upset. I was visibly upset. We did a lot of crying. We have gotten through that, thank goodness. He wasn't able, I don't see if I can explain this. Jim, if you talked to him, you probably wouldn't pick up that much was wrong. But if you get into an in-depth conversation, you can tell that something is off, something is just not right. His job, he managed people, and he did budgets. And I don't know why I didn't think about the fact that he would have to do those budgets. He had lost the ability to run a checkbook. He couldn't even make his checkbook balance out. I mean, by the time he had stopped paying bills, he just basically called the bank, see what he had in the bank his checking account that day, and he just kind of rolled with that. And it caused some big issues with our finances. So I don't know how I thought he was able to do budgeting at work. Actually, I didn't think that he could do budgeting at work. I was actually amazed that he could do budgeting at work. And I would tell people all the time that I was amazed. Well, come to find out, his coworkers had been covering for him for about 8 months. And so they finally decided it was probably time for him to step down. He luckily was 100% vested, so he could retire early. And I was able to work with his HR staff. He really, when they laid out all the options, he couldn't understand them. And so I had to work with his HR staff, who, by the way, is amazing. I had to work with them to figure out the best option for Jim. Um, and so we went down the retirement path. He now stays home by himself. He's able to stay by himself. My parents live next door to us, so they're able to check in on him. Bless my parents' heart, they just thought they were retired between running my grandkids everywhere and running my husband everywhere. The poor people can't even get a rest. He stays at home. When he first lost his job, you're going to have to excuse this wind. I am in a hotel room right by the air conditioning unit, and it keeps coming on. When he first retired, we decided the one thing that I didn't want was I didn't want him to stay home and just sit in his room all day, because that's basically what he did after he got off work. He just sat all day and he in the room and didn't do anything. Well, I was bound and determined that that wasn't going to happen if he was going to be at home all day. I just felt like it would cause the illness to move faster. So I adjust this phone just a tad. I started out by making him little cue cards each day, and on those cards would be a list of tasks for him to do for that day. That worked for maybe a month. And then he started getting frustrated. He wouldn't know the order to do things, and it would frustrate him tremendously. If he got to the card and he didn't know how to do something and there were still remaining things to do, instead of just jumping to the next thing to do, his brain would just shut down and he couldn't figure out what to do next. He would pull out stuff and he wouldn't know where to put it back. If he does clean, I've learned to just kind of let this go and kind of just put it back as I get home. But if he does clean, he cleans very well. However, things that he moves around to clean will be strung out everywhere, and you will have to put it back. For example, if he's cleaning the bathroom and he cleans the counter and you have stuff on the counter, you'll come home and it's strung all out on your bathroom floor and you have to put it back. But hey, the floor's clean, the counter's clean, the mirror's clean, whatever, just roll with it. I think Jim can tell there's changes going on. I think he's a little afraid to ask, or a little afraid of knowing 100% what's going on. So he just he laughs things off a lot. One of the best things about all of this is that the mood swings that he did have, they've pretty much gone. Even though he has frontal lobe, he has bilateral dementia, but even though he has frontal lobe, which typically comes with really bad moods, losing your filter, hitting, biting, that type of stuff, being very angry all the time. Luckily for us right now, Jim is really in a good mood. He's in a good mood most days. He laughs things off. He'll say crazy things, and then when you're like, what exactly are you talking about, Jim? He'll just laugh them off and go on about his day. He went through a period of time of telling everybody I was stealing his money and I wouldn't give him any money, and he didn't have any money to spend, so he had to walk the roads and pick up cans. And when I would be like, Jim, nah, that is not true, he would just laugh. Or my mom, he'll tell my mom and dad stuff like that. My mom will be, now, Jim, that is not the case, and it's not the case. He'll just laugh. He thinks it's so funny. So that is just a great, a great quality of this. If there has to be a great quality of this right now, that's it. I'm gonna count every single little thing that he does good as a blessing for now. He can stay by himself. He doesn't need somebody there with him watching him 100% of the time. He can't do his medicine. I do that for him every day. He can't cook anymore. Well, he cheats a little. When he does cheat, though, you know that you might get burnt meat that's raw in the middle, or you could get a perfectly grilled steak. If you don't mind recooking burnt meat, then you're okay. He might have a day where he is very productive and he gets some things done. It's typically not a lot. Or he might have a day where he makes the bed, and that's his day. That's all he gets done. If there are dishes in the kitchen that needed to be done, they won't be done. If he messes up dishes, they're not going to be done. If there's clothes that need to be folded, he's not going to fold them. He doesn't think to do the pool anymore. He doesn't really think to mow anymore unless you say something first. Then he'll get it. He'll typically work hard to try to get it done. Jim wants to do what you're doing when you're doing it. If you're putting up the dishes, he wants to put up the dishes. If you're sweeping the floor, all of a sudden he wants to sweep the floor. It's kind of that thing. It's like he wants to be with you every second that you're home. And he tends to stare a lot. He tends to follow you around a lot. He gets lost in conversations. You can tell that he doesn't understand. He doesn't follow them. He gets very, very confused very, very fast. He's no longer able to drive. We've had to sell his dirt bikes. One of the reasons being is that any blow to your head, however minor, could speed the dementia up, and that's one thing that we don't want. The medication that we have him on doesn't really seem to be working. We're going through all the testing to find out, is there something else, something different that we can try? What else? He sleeps a lot. He's never been one that slept in, and now he sleeps. I say sleeps a lot. He's typically up by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, but this is coming from a person who is up by 5 all the time. He goes to sleep really early in the afternoon. He tires out very, very fast. He gets overloaded very quickly. But for the most part, he knows who we are. That's a big, big, big blessing. And he loves everybody. He tells everybody he loves them. The one thing I don't think I've ever heard him say in the history of us being married is I don't think I've ever heard him tell my mom or my dad that he loves them. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard him tell my mom that he loves her. And I'm sure that touches her heart as much as it touches mine. He asks about heaven a lot. And he, sorry, starting to get a little choked up here, wants to make sure that he's led a kind of life to get to heaven. He would love for my daughter and her husband to have a baby. He talks to them all the time about that. I'm so sorry. Didn't expect to get this choked up. He talks about trips that he wants to do. We have a big one coming up to see his cousin that we haven't seen in a long time. We're going to do some fun things while we're going, and I'll record some of that, and hopefully that'll go good. Jim was always like kind of a walking roadmap. No matter where he went, if he had never been there, he knew where he was going. Me, I'm directionally challenged. Well, his sense of direction took a big hit. And now it's very difficult for us to travel together because my tendency is to want to lean on him to know where we're going, and his tendency is to know where we're going. So I never know if he actually knows where we're going or if we're going to get lost. So thank God for GPS and Waze. We will make it there. I have faith. I think I'm going to try to cut this off just because I think I'm getting a little too emotional right now. And I don't want to be. I am going to do another video later on tonight, and that'll be from my perspective and things that I'm going through and how I went from A to Z. And then videos from after that. I'm going to try to get the 4 videos, the diagnosis video or family dynamic video, his video and my video all posted by the end of the weekend. And then from there, it's going to do the day-to-day videos. And hopefully by then we'll be on our trip and they'll be exciting. So have a good evening. I'll talk to you just a little bit later. Thank you.